Welcome to the first edition, the inaugural edition, if you will, of the And Away They Joe show. My name is Joe. You could follow me on Twitter at @and_away they Joe. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'm hoping I could bring a little brightness to the darkness that's going on in the world right now. And I'm coming to you from Fairfield, California, which has the Budweiser factory, the Jelly Belly factory, Travis Air Force Base, and we did have a mall until somebody rode a forklift into the Best Buy here. But yeah, that's Fairfield if you were curious to know how Fairfield is, and that's where I live. So thank you guys again. A little bit about myself. I've been following horse racing since 2014. My uncle used to take me to the track a long time ago when I was about 10 years old, and used to go to Bay Meadows when it was still open, Golden Gate Fields, and all the fair circuits. And he used to be a big gambler, so he used to bet horses and all that stuff. And then eventually I started to gamble on the horses too. And then I just became a big fan of watching horse racing in general. I love animals. I love watching the horses. I'm actually starting to ride horses myself, and I just started to do that this year because I was trying to find something to do during the pandemic. And riding a horse is actually a really, really good therapeutic thing for me. And it's really fun. If you haven't had the chance to do it, at least try it once, especially if you watch horse racing. If you want to have a little peace and relax, relax, you should do it. It's actually pretty cool. I've enjoyed it myself, and the hardest thing right now is trying to go up and down while they're trotting, and I've been doing it for a month, so it's been pretty crazy. I'm hoping I could get to the next part, which is going to be the canter, and then hopefully the gallop, and then start riding trails and all that stuff. And this show is going to be about, if you're a beginner, if you watch horse racing a lot, if you're a big fan of it. We do have a lot of people from the industry that's going to join me on this show. And the first guest I have today is going to be Matt Dinerman. He is the track announcer and racing analyst. Little side note here, you're going to hear me struggle with saying analyst, spoiler alert, during the interview, which I find funny. But yeah, he's going to be on here. Going to be really fun. It was such a great interview. Such a nice guy. I really love Matt. He was really, really cool. Really, really awesome. Had a lot of fun times when we were down before he was a race caller and he was doing the paddock analysis of the show. I'm still struggling to do that now. But be sure to check that out. That'll be in our next segment. But right now I wanted to talk about, we do have a lot of stakes races coming up. Some big stake races, but there's two in particular that I'm going to be watching, and one of them is going to be the Santa Anita Derby, in which Azul Coast, who is from my home track, or raced in my home track, and won the El Camino Real Derby, and at 15-1 in the morning line right now, or 15-1 for the odds, I want to bet that horse just because he won the Golden Gate Fields, the race there. So we also have Authentic, who is the stablemate. Bob Baffert has both of them in. And Authentic won two big races already. He's already won a grade 2 and a grade 3. So obviously going to be the favorite. Going to be tough to beat. But I'm hoping Azul Coast is the one that beats him. And the next one is going to be in the wee hours of Sunday morning. But Saturday here, because it's going to be, I think, 11 o'clock. 11:40 Eastern time. Or 11:40 Pacific time. And that's going to be the Yasuda Kinen. And that's going to have Almanai and Indy Champ in the big rematch. That's going to be such a crazy race. And Almanai, I think, is going to be the favorite. But the way Indy Champ won that last race, this is the same exact race they were in last year. So this is another big rematch. So I'm hoping that Almanai, who just won another grade 1 before this race, I'm hoping she captures that. And I'm hoping she wins. So now we're going to have Matt. He's going to come on. We're going to talk about a little bit about Golden Gate Fields and how he got started in the horse racing industry. And we'll be looking forward to hearing what he has to say. Joining me today, we have Matt Dinerman. You could follow him on Twitter at 3Colts Handicap. He is also the track announcer and racing analyst at Golden Gate Fields. Thanks, Matt, for joining me today.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me on. How are you doing?
Oh, well, it's pretty crazy over here in Fairfield. They just looted the mall and stuff, so it's kind of, plus we have the curfew, so it's kind of a little crazy here right now. Is it okay over there? Are you safe?
Yeah, I've got my curfew. I'm just sitting here. I just finished watching an episode of The Office. We all need a couple of laughs, so I'm
Oh
getting
yeah.
my daily dose. Don't worry.
Are you wearing your mask?
Not inside. I'm good. I got my mask. I'm looking at it right over here. I got a few of them on the table over there. I got like plenty of masks. I could give you a mask if you need one, Joe. So if you ever need an extra one, let me know.
Oh yeah, I think if when they start slowly letting people back into the track, I'll definitely wear one. Hopefully, one that has like horses on it and stuff.
Beautiful. It's now like a thing that you have a stylish mask, I guess. There, look at my mask. Look how cool it is. Oh, that's a cool mask. It's sort of a new trend, isn't it?
Yeah, when I went on, I think Etsy, I was looking through custom masks, and you could pretty much put anything on there. So I was hoping to put like the new Golden Gate Fields logo. I actually like that logo. What do you think?
I love it. It's a really cool logo. And if anybody wants to check it out, they can watch it on the track feed online, goldengatefields.com. We've got it if you haven't seen it. But yeah, I'd love to see your mask, Joe, if you do have it on there.
Oh yeah, once everything gets back to normal, I'm sure I'll be over there for sure. So Matt, how did you get into horse racing?
So I grew up in San Diego, California, and my dad was a fan of the racetrack. I'm unique in the sense that my family doesn't really come from a horse racing background. In fact, we don't. And I sort of just fell in love with the sport going with my dad. I think he first took me to the racetrack at Del Mar. That's my home track, or at least that's where I grew up watching the races and ended up working there to start my career. But I was about 10 when my dad took me there. And then I sort of just got the racing bug. And they say once you get bit by the racing bug, it stays in your blood forever. And that sort of has been the map for me as of now. It's just I fell in love with the sport and I wanted to get into it as soon as I was old enough to work.
And being a race caller is actually a pretty hard job. How did you end up getting, or what made you decide to become a race caller?
When I was watching the races and decided that I wanted to be in the business, I really wanted to have a job at the racetrack. And originally, I thought, being a television analyst would be sort of a good avenue for me. That was the very first thing I was thinking of when I was in my teens. I decided I like handicapping. I like talking about horses. I like talking about horses to other people. I like hearing from people. And I think a TV analyst was sort of my first picture in my head of what I wanted to do. But eventually, I kept listening to Trevor Denman and Vic Stauffer, who was at Hollywood Park at the time, because I was young and I only really watched California racing. And every once in a while, New York, I hear Tom Durkin when he was doing the national telecast. And I said, this is a pretty cool job. And that would be really interesting to have a job like that. And I would ask my dad all these questions. So I think it was always in my head because my dad said I would always ask him questions. So when I started working in the press box at Del Mar, I did get a job there working as basically the press box intern, so to speak, and helping the writers and anything they needed, printing out releases for them, doing all sorts of various jobs. I decided that I would get some binoculars, and my uncle and aunt bought me the binoculars, and I actually started calling races into a tape recorder, and that's sort of where the dream began. And I just practiced, and hoped that at some point I would get good enough to do it for a living.
Living the dream is like what you always say. Every time I see you living the dream, and you're most definitely doing that. And you first started at Emerald Downs as the track announcer there, summer of 2015, and you replaced Robert Geller, who's now at Woodbine. And I know he called Hong Kong before. What was it like being the youngest full-time announcer at Emerald Downs?
I loved it, and I had a blast. Emerald Downs is a real gem of a racetrack. Really good people. It's a tight knit community. Emerald, similar to Golden Gate, is on its own little island. They're up there in the Pacific Northwest in Auburn, Washington. And you've got your local horsemen that really gear up for that meet. And even though it's 5.5, 6 months, and maybe the quality of racing isn't as good as other tracks around the country, it's sort of seen as like a boutique meet in a way for the locals. And it's a lot of fun. The weather's always good up there in the spring and summertime. And when I got in there, obviously I was inexperienced, but people were so nice and so gracious and so patient as I tried to get better and better at calling races. And I just had a blast. And being the youngest race caller in the country was certainly an interesting thing because, a lot of people that are race callers, they get a really good opportunity maybe in their mid to late 20s or early 30s and sometimes in their 40s. So to be able to do it at a young age right off the bat, I was really, really lucky, and I learned a lot.
Oh yeah, like when I listened to Robert Geller, I was like, oh man, wonder who's feet he's gonna have to step in, and then it ended up being you, and I was like, oh well, this is gonna be interesting. But then after a while, you start growing into your calls, and then everything starts being like, it's always gonna be hard on your very first day. Any job you do, it's gonna be very hard. So I could imagine how hard it was to try to keep doing your job as best as you do, because I love your calls at Golden Gate. And are you gonna still? Are you ever gonna go back up to Emerald and call the TRX races?
Yeah, we actually had the T-Rex races up there, and the very first T-Rex race I think was the second year I was there, I believe. And believe it or not, they ran the T-Rex race, and people saw it on the internet, but it wasn't that viral at that point. The next year, they had toga races from the same company. I think it was like a real estate company or something in that realm there that would go to the races once a year, and they would have a race named after them, and they asked to race on the track, and they did. But when I left and Tom Harris, who's now there, took over, he called a T-Rex race because they did T-Rexes again, and it went viral. Millions and millions of people all over the world saw the T-Rex race. It's just unbelievable. I will let Tom Harris continue to call those T-Rex races, but if there's another one, I will definitely be watching.
When you were at Golden Gate, you had big shoes to fill. You had Frank Miramati's called there, Travis Stone's called there, Michael Rona's called there, Larry Colmus, and your idol Trevor Denman's called there. What was it like being a part of that lineage right now?
It was quite an honor when I was asked to take over and be the new announcer for Golden Gate. I was very flattered. I was honored. And I was really excited. And at the time, I was thinking to myself, okay, the one thing I want to do is be accurate. And I want to put my own spin on it because that's what every good announcer does. They have their own style. And
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of interesting you bring up filling those big shoes because when I was at Emerald Downs, the stewards at Emerald, that first week I called races there, towards the end of the week, they got me these giant shoes, believe it or not, like with flowers in the shoes. There were flowers, there were like candies, some pens and pencils and notepads and all sorts of cute little things. And there was a note that said, "You have big shoes to fill with Robert leaving, but we're looking forward to it," from the stewards. And that was really cool. And I kept the shoes for a while. I mean, these things were giant shoes. I wore a size 11 and a half. These things must have been at least 15, Joe. I mean,
Oh my goodness.
these things were massive shoes. But anyway, Robert Geller, who is a mentor of mine and now a very good friend of mine, he was really mentoring me and getting me prepared to call on my own and actually step it up and say, okay, you were calling races in a little booth over your recorder. Now you're going to do it on television and you're going to do it for a community and a lot of people are going to hear you. And at the time there was a lot of uncertainty for me. I was nervous. I was anxious. I was a little bit scared. I was excited. All of these things were sort of flashing through me as the time came closer to me starting to call there. But Robert always told me, Matt, people are going to love you for your style and what you bring to the table. So don't worry about filling the shoes that I had on and am now leaving to you. You put
Mm-hmm.
those shoes aside and you come in with your own shoes and you fill in with your own style. And Robert Geller, this is what he said. He goes, I feel that you're good enough to where whatever you bring to the table, people are going to love you for it. And you just have to really work on getting as good as you can at your craft. So with that in mind, going back to Golden Gate, I actually had experience filling big shoes with Robert at Emerald. And because of
Yeah.
that, I think going into the Golden Gate Fields announcers booth, it was actually a lot more easy for me than when I started at Emerald because I just looked at it as a wonderful opportunity to where I could call races for, 9.5 months of the year at a wonderful track in my home state with good people. And at that point, I was just going to continue to improve my craft, which to this day, I still do that. And I'm always going to do that until probably the day that I retire from calling races. And hopefully that's a long ways away. So With that in mind, I just try to build on it every day, and I do the same thing now as I did the first day I stepped into the Golden Gate Fields announcers booth. But going back to what you were saying, yeah, I mean, there were just so many of these really good announcers that went on to do really big things, and it's an honor to be in that same announcers booth as a lot of those guys.
We're talking with Matt Dinerman, the track announcer and racing analyst at Golden Gate Fields. You know, I'm going to be a little honest with you. I do miss being around you when you were doing the paddock reporting and all that stuff. I remember we would all talk and look for food in the trainer's lounge.
And you know what? I miss that food. I miss you guys, and I miss interacting with people. And they have good food and soda in there. I don't drink soda, Joe, but I don't know if you do, but they had good soda and good food in there.
Oh yeah. I loved hanging out in there, watching and looking at the trainers, watching their horses race, and it was pretty funny. And I know that being a race caller, there's a lot of stuff that goes on during it, even before and after the race. Like, how do you prepare for all that? Because I know that you have to mark the program. I've seen like Tom Durkin do that, and he has a little like hanger that he has in front of his neck to make sure that he's calling the right horse. How does that go about?
Well, when you're practicing to be an announcer, you get a good feel for what you need to do. And there's no right or wrong answer to preparation, in my opinion, because everybody does things differently. I've heard of a couple of announcers that said, I don't want to look at the form. I don't want any sort of preconceived notion on what's going to happen in the race. And there's that. There are some guys that religiously study the form. There are certain people that I know color the silks in their program, and it helps them memorize the horses. For me, the first thing I do is I usually wait a day in advance. I take it one day at a time. I don't want to handicap too much and look at too much at one time. So what I do is the day before the race. So let's just say we have Thursday racing, right? On Wednesday, I handicap all the races. Now I have to do that anyway because I am the analyst and I go on and give my picks and give out some tickets and this and that and the other thing. But even if I wasn't the analyst and somebody else was doing the paddock analysis, for example, and the race analysis before and or after the race, I would still be handicapping the race because I think there's a lot of good material in the form, things I can reference to, breeding, jockey trainer combinations, certain horses that maybe they did something one race and the next race they're doing something different. You know, maybe there's a horse that's adding blinkers and they're showing a lot more speed, which is common. All of these things you can find in the form. And even though I look and handicap the race, I'm not handicapping the race so I can try to figure out what's going to happen in the race. I'm just looking to get familiar with the horses early on and have a good idea of the situations with each horse and maybe if there's anything worth noting or anything interesting going on. Then when it comes down to it, after I finish handicapping, I don't look at it anymore until the horses get on the track per race. So we kick off with race one, right? There are seven horses in the race, let's just say. All seven of them come on the track. I'm memorizing the horses through their silks. So I'm looking at the silks. I'm looking at the horses. I'm memorizing them. I'm memorizing the jockey. The good news is I've been calling horses and jockeys and trainers and owners silks for quite a few years here at Golden Gate at this point. So there are plenty of horses that I already know. At the same time, there are also horses, maybe they get claimed and they come out in new silks or they're babies or first-time starters, and you have to memorize those a little bit harder. But you want to have it memorized for the race. I don't color the program like some announcers do. It's not right or wrong. It's just for me, I had a really tough time coloring and memorizing. It was easier for me to just look at the horses and memorize them. And then after I memorize them in the post parade, I go on air, and that helps a little bit to talk about the horses and see them on the track. But Vic Stoffer actually taught me, believe it or not, if you can, take a few minutes off of them, let your brain process it, because it's like studying for a test. If you study for a test an hour before the test and you study for an hour, you're not going to remember anything in the long term. But if you let it sink in, you study the night before, you sleep on it, you come back, you're really going to retain that information. So I try to do that, give it a couple minutes. Then when they're going to the gate, I go back to memorizing the horses. I call the race. Hopefully everything goes well, do all that, and then I get ready to call the next one, and it's just sort of rinse and repeat. And in between races, I'm handicapping for the next day.
We're talking with Matt Dinerman here from the track announcer and racing analyst.
You'll get it,
Joe. Yeah, I'll get it eventually. Oh, now I do want to ask you, because I know you periscope during the race.
Yeah.
I don't know the story about the ducks. Can you tell us a little bit about the ducks that you have, the rubber ducks that you have in your booth?
It's an interesting story. So it started at Emerald Downs. I would go bowling with some of my friends, and it became a weekly ritual where we'd go. I believe it was on Tuesday over there. Monday or Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. And they would have these really cheap specials where you could bowl for like $3 a person a game or something ridiculously cheap. So every Tuesday we go and we bowl. I'm pretty average to subpar at bowling, but I still had a good time. It's just the experience hanging out with your buddies. And at this bowling alley, they have this duck machine where there's the rubber ducks in there and there's the claw. And you put in a quarter and you actually keep going until you get a duck. So even if you fail 10 times, they still let you keep trying until you get a rubber duck. So I started collecting a few, and I was like, okay, every time I go, I'm going to start picking up, $1 worth of ducks. So I would get 4 at a time or so. Next thing you know, I had like 15 of them or 20 of them. And I said, well, we need to put these somewhere because they're not staying at the house. And I said, I need to spice up the booth a little bit. So next thing you know, I was collecting these ducks, and before you know it, I have like 40 or 50 of them, and they're all in the booth. And I take a picture of them, and people start catching on. And soon enough, what ends up happening is there are certain fans from certain places that start sending me more ducks. So I'm here at Golden Gate in present day, and I have over 200 ducks, and I probably purchased maybe 80 of them. I'm pretty sure about half of these ducks, if not more, have been given to me from fans, from family members, from friends, and we have grown this collection. And it's just a really unique thing in the announcer's booth, and it's part of the announcer's booth. It's part of the story. And they all watch the races, and they all have different themes, and it's pretty cool. I mean, they're not all like yellow rubber ducks, Joe. I mean, there's like Statue of Liberty duck. There's like Princess duck. I mean, there's like a million different things, and it's pretty cool. It's just an interesting thing we've come to do. But I'd love to call it my collection, but at the same time, it was given to me by a lot of people. So in a way, it's sort of everybody's collection.
We're all on Twitter. The Twitter community for horse racing is so awesome, and I'm glad that they welcomed me into it. And I know that we have a lot of funny stories between you, me, and other people within the community. Is there one that you remember that you want to share with us that's actually like, oh man, I'm never going to forget this? It's always funny every time I think of it.
Well, there's one story involving you and a gal named Bailey Gallison a number of years ago, before I was even a race caller. At the time, I was on Twitter, and I still had a couple thousand followers, I think. And you wrote happy birthday to her for some reason. I forgot what it was. And I didn't know it wasn't her birthday. So I wrote to her, happy birthday, Bailey, and followed up on your message. And she wrote, Matt, it's not my birthday. Joe's just joking around. Well, I guess a lot of people saw my response and didn't see hers back to me, because next thing you know, Bailey and you and I, all in the same thread, were getting tons of notifications of all these people writing, happy birthday, Bailey. So now I usually wish happy birthday to Bailey twice a year in honor of the one time that it is actually her birthday, and the other instance where it isn't really her birthday.
So she has 2 birthdays in the year. I thought she had like 50 because of all those people that were that kept getting we kept getting notifications. I was just so funny. I can't believe like I just can't believe it was like so many people.
Most human beings only have one birthday. Cats have 9 lives, but Bailey's got 2 birthdays.
She's so lucky.
She's very lucky. I hope she gets double the presents.
Matt, thank you for joining me. Thursday through Sunday, right? That's going to be the winter spring meet. Is that correct?
Thursday through Sunday. That's right, Joe. And we've only got a couple weeks left. Closing days June 14th this year, featuring the Grade 3 $250,000 San Francisco Mile on that Sunday closing day, June 14th. And then we're still working out the situation with the fair dates this year. Those could be a little out of whack. So we're still waiting on that. But Obviously, after the winter spring meet, we've got a summer meet and a fall meet as well. So for those racing fans out there, just keep your eyes open and your ears pinned to a sound speaker, because at some point we will be relaying, once we have an idea from the CHRB, when our summer meet starts after that June 14th date.
Yeah, be sure to be there for the summer meet, because that's a quick meet. I think it's only like a couple weeks because of the fairs. So I definitely, once that opens up and the public is allowed to go in, I'm definitely going to be there. And we also have some stake races on Saturday and Sunday, I believe, the Albany and the Golden Poppy.
This week we've got the Albany and the Golden Poppy. Yes, sir. And the Albany actually was drawn today when we recorded this. 9 horses in the race, including Any Port in a Storm, who's a very nice horse in the Blaine Wright barn. And what's on the agenda for trainer Doug O'Neill shipping up here? He's a stakes place turf sprinter. So it should be a fun race. And then on Sunday, we've got the Golden Poppy for Filly and Mare Routers on the turf.
Yeah, there was one horse that I saw that was from Hong Kong that actually raced against Pakistan Star, and that was Bear Chum. And the only reason why I remembered the name is because the race caller, I forget his name, in Hong Kong at Sha Tin was just saying, hit the 2 horses, Bear Chum, the other one, Bear Chum, and then all of a sudden, look at Pakistan Star, and then I was like, where did he come from?
And Pakistan Star flew by. If Pakistan Star was in the Albany, if he was still racing, he'd be 1-9.
1-9, oh my goodness.
In a 10-horse field, he'd probably be 1-9.
Oh, man. Well, thank you very much, Matt. Remember to follow Matt, 3 Colts Handicap, the track announcer and racing analyst at Golden Gate Fields. It was a pleasure to have you on, Matt. I really appreciate your time.
The pleasure was all mine, Joe. It's awesome to be on. Thanks for having me.
1,200 metres for the Griffins. They stand well, set, and they're off. Now, Pakistan Star was slow, as was Cheer Win. Carry to Win didn't get away all that quickly, and Audacity's got no pace. Pace from Bear Chum deeper out, and he charges forward. Gainful Jet was away quickly, as was Don Wong Choi, and Call Me Handsome ridden forward. Deeper out is Bumble Baby from Lookaras and Armrunda down on the rail, then Ambitious Heart. A length away to Sea Jade, who's coursing very deep from Cheer Win, who's keen on the back of heels. Carry to Win down on the rail from Audacity, Holy Unicorn, and Pakistan Star can't go with them. He's 3 lengths last of all. Bear Chum has the lead as they approach the bend, but Call Me Handsome is keeping him honest, and this pair have broken 3 lengths in front. Don Wong Choi, Gainful Jet, Lookaras, and then Armrunda from Cheer Win and CJ to the middle, but it's Call Me Handsome and Bear Chum in a sterling battle. They're 3 lengths clear. Armrunda, followed by Gainful Jet and Lookaras, Call Me Handsome and Bear Chum. Bear Chum and Call Me Handsome. Great titanic struggle. Look at Pakistan Star right out in the middle of the track from last to first. What a win this! Pakistan Star has blown them away. Wowee, he can run this horse, Pakistan Star.
Brett Davis with the call there from the Hong Kong Jockey Club at Sha Tin. Absolutely crazy debut from Pakistan Star. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I'm sure you guys have seen it, but if you haven't seen it, you should go on YouTube and type it into the search, Pakistan Star debut. Just absolutely crazy. About 500 lengths back, bobbles the start, and then just goes right over the top of the field. Just an absolutely stunning debut by that horse. And I remember being on the Pakistan Star bandwagon. I still have the Pakistan Star plushie that I got from Hong Kong, and I don't know if he's sleeping right now or if he's still chasing that field. But that's how I remember Bear Chum, because of Pakistan Star's debut. And Bear Chum is going to be in the Albany Stakes this Saturday at Golden Gate Fields. And I don't know if he's the first horse to come from Sha Tin to race in a stakes race at Golden Gate Fields, so I'm going to have to look into that. But hopefully you guys get to see it. Hopefully Bear Chum wins. I don't know what his odds are. I'm going to have to look. But yeah, absolutely crazy. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I do have a special guest next week. It's going to be Bailey Gallison. You can follow her on Twitter, starting_gate. We're going to be talking about the NYRA, among other things, so be sure to check that out. I hope you guys are having a good day, and be safe out there. Have your toilet paper, your hand sanitizer, wear your mask, social distancing, all that fun stuff we're still doing. And until next time, and away they go.